laws of physics as of now.
No, not impossible. Like, we recognize things like dark energy.
So perpetual motion is not a thing. We have like scientifically refuted that. We cannot have possibly perpetual motion. It will require you to have an infinite amount of accessible energy.
Well, do you understand why most theorists that like study cosmological inflation agree that the universe is exponentially, infinitely expanding, even though they agree that's not the case?
Well, what do you mean?
Okay, so we have this thing called dark energy, okay, that accounts for about 70% of what's powering the exponential expansion of the universe. If we were to deflate that, a lot of models and a lot of theorists, especially Brian Cox, Neil deGrasse Tyson, they talk about this often, you would have to have almost opposite dark energy, right? This dark energy would have to be inflating, or not inflating, but deflating constantly, exponentially. The issue with this...
But is the total amount finite or infinite? I'm saying if it is infinite, then we will be able to have perpetual motion. But it is a fact that we acknowledge, like that's a scientific consensus, we cannot have perpetual motion. So regardless of dark energy, not dark energy, or whatever, we know for a fact we don't have this infinite amount of energy like available in the universe.
Perpetual motion is like even if motion of bodies that continue in unperturbed.
So if you have infinite regress, something such as perpetual motion would have to be possible technically, but it is not possible. So that's why we can infer that you cannot have infinite regress.
Yeah, is my
okay. Like, well, I'm gonna explain this, and if you don't understand, because I don't really have patience for Axility, I'm just gonna local mute. But the thing is, you're not wrong, right? But that isn't the issue, though. The issue is, right, when the universe, when it expands, it's not expanding because it just is pulling energy out of its ass, okay? It's expanding because there is a force that counteracts gravitational pulls of matter, okay? If you understand how gravitational acceleration works, we understand these bigger objects distort reality in space and time, okay? Quantum fluctuations usually are what some people theorize has the beginning point of it. But let's say these quantum fluctuations weren't. Let's say this thing that we have this infinite past, okay? It's plausible in the sense to where, yeah, like we don't understand a lot about dark energy, so it could potentially lead to us having some deflationary, dark energy. But how do we account for the idea of expansion, right? What would cause the expansion as a whole? Is it expanding backwards? Is it expanding frontwards? That's the issue not a lot of physicists have the answer to. That's why not a lot of people take that idea very seriously. Because the CMB gives us an actual measurement of how we contract the linings of the universe to how it expanded, or at least gives us a more accurate theory and model. So the idea of it, you don't have to have an infinite amount of energy to have this quote unquote regress. It's just doesn't really make sense to us because we don't have a lot of understanding of dark energy, which is the reason we understand, at least at the moment, with our understanding why expansion even happens in the first place. It's like based on like complete abstraction, like pseudoscience,
You will need to have an infinite.
So I don't disagree with
the universe is not unperturbed. But anyways, did you hear that, Penny? He's not here.
Nigga, Penny was not there.
I was gonna give him the light. What the fuck?
Nigga did not listen.
I was talking to you, Axility, and like more of the VC.
Okay, so then I don't disagree with anything you said besides the fact that you tried to deny the requirement of having infinite energy. Like, you're wrong on that. You do, regardless, it's unavoidable that in such a case you would have to have. Right. So no, that will be. Wait, can you hear me? Okay, so no, that will require an infinite amount of energy regardless. It will.
Why so?
Infinite regress always requires, I already explained that earlier. If you could remember, you could remember.
Well, the thing is, it's based, I feel like that idea is based on a misunderstanding of energy. Like, what do you think energy is?
How do you think is going to be a misunderstanding of energy? I don't get it.
Because if we understand energy as the capacity to do something, which is all energy is, it's just excitation, partum molecules.
Because there's a limited amount of usable energy. There's a limited amount of usable energy in the universe.
What's the issue with that? In Fluxity,
buddy, you just agree with me. You just agree with me that there's a finite usable energy in the universe. If you were to have an infinite regress as an actual infinity in the past, is literally going to imply that there has always been a case in which there was some type of usable energy. So that's basically doing like infinite times for infinite times, like multiplication and infinite amount of times. That's going to imply unavoidably so. That's going to imply an infinite amount of energy, of usable energy, which we don't have for a fact.
But that's ignorant because it presupposes the idea that this energy cannot be exponentially reconverted over and over and time again.
No, really, it's just basic modus ponens. If you cannot track to that, then it's not my fault. Are you like those sophistics who say that are you like one of those sophistics who says that a conclusion that is deductively valid somehow still begs the question because the conclusion can be found implicitly in the premises?
That has nothing to do
if that is what you mean to say, then yes, every argument will be begging the question. Otherwise, what you said is wrong because the conclusion can just be obtained from the implicit. Can I finish? From the implicit stuff that we have in the premises.
This is misunderstanding. Like,
okay, no, because I give you modus ponens, there was no presupposition.
It doesn't matter. No premise. What do you think modus ponens is?
Modus ponens is literally whenever you have a premise 1 with P implies Q, premise 2, P therefore Q.
Yo, you're
That's
talking
what
about a valid form. You can have a valid form and still be wrong, you moron. What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? What this nigga's not.
What are you talking about?
You said that it's presupposition. No, you're not tracking. Listen, you said that it was a presupposition, right? Did you not say that I'm still presupposing
that?
No, I
said it was a misunderstanding.
There's no presupposition in it because the conclusion is validly obtained in modus ponens without it being present within the premises. That means that there was no presupposition. Nobody's talking about the truth of the conclusion, even though the argument is deductively valid. You're not tracking that part, buddy. Can you please address what I just said? No, can you please address what I just said? Because I just told you that you got it wrong because you were not tracking that part. Can you please address it? Can you please address it, or what?
If you answer my question, of course.
I asked the question first, so let's go by the same logic. Why don't you answer the question? Ask first. But, is this thing slow? I just told you ask the question for first. Let's go by the same logic. Ask for first. Why are you not answering for first as well?
Because in order for me to answer that question, I need an understanding of what you're presupposing.
Okay, so that's just going to be a loaded question because you keep presupposing that I'm presupposing something. I disagree with that presupposition. I don't think that I'm presupposing anything. You just asked me a loaded question.
Keep coming.
You just asked a loaded question, buddy. You just presuppose that I made a presupposition.
You can say no, and it won't be a presupposition. You know that, right?
We put into question whether or not it is true that I was having a presupposition, right? So what's the justification that I had the presupposition? Go ahead. What's the justification that I had a presupposition? Could you please explain that to me?
Whether it's the case that you're presupposing this energy is infinitely coming and coming. I'm not already assuming you're presupposing.
Okay, so that does not address anything that I said. Can you please now answer the question?
It does address it because you said that I was begging, or that I assumed you were begging the question that you're presupposing that level. That's not at all what I'm assuming. Not at all.
Okay, so you're repeating the claim. Listen, you're repeating the claim is now going to be an explanation on why the claim is now relevant. Yes, you did. You just made a repetition. Everybody can testify.
I said that.
Yes, you can. Yes, we can go by testification, bro. You just repeated itself. I just told you that you got it wrong because you're not able to track what I said.
Do you agree that energy is the capacity to do something? Yes or no?
Okay, so that once again, besides the answer that the question that I asked you. So can you please answer to the question that I asked you because it's not going to be relevant.
Do you know how integration
you keep wanting me to answer your question first, even though I asked the question for first and you was for second. So you need to answer my question first.
Repeating over and over without resulting in
You need to answer my question first because I asked it for first, if we go by your logic.
Okay, so if you understand integration...
Okay, so what was my question?
Energy, correct?
Archie, can you tell me what was my question? Because I think you forgot about my question, and that's why now you're going in the circles because you're lost in the souls. Could you please explain to me what was my question? Can you repeat my question again?
Because all I was saying personally is that if this energy is repeating, at least in the universe, at least going back, and this is just a theory, I don't necessarily agree with it. I believe in cosmological inflation. I don't believe that there's an infinite past. But hypothetically, if someone were to try to justify a hypothetical past, saying that we can't have an infinite amount of energy, that's just not a very convincing refutation. The reason why is because
if you were to, and I have explained it multiple times, if you were to have an infinite regress as an actual infinity, then the implication is that you have an infinite amount of time where you had some type of usable energy. Now that by definition is going to be an infinite amount of energy, which would allow stuff such as perpetual motion. However, we know for a fact that perpetual motion cannot be true, therefore infinite regress is false. It is convincing, it is deductively valid, and there's no presupposition in it. It's just basic modus ponens, you cannot trace.
It's just disingenuous. There's no point.
Just chill out. Just chill out for a second.
I mean, he has to chill out since he came back and he just got refuted at it.
I was gonna tell him something. So, like, if the universe had an actual infinite past, right? We have to make the distinction between actual infinity and potential infinity. And actual infinity refers to a completed infinite quantity. For example, if the past is actually infinite, there's no starting point, and time extends infinitely backward with no beginning, right? So that's the relevant infinity we're talking about. Now, let's go over the energy within the universe, right? So when we talk about the conservation of energy, like the law of conservation of energy, it just states that energy cannot be created or destroyed in an isolated system, and that it can only change forms. Now, if the universe is considered a closed system, the total energy is going to be like constant over time, and that means that the amount of energy at any given time is the same as like any other time, assuming no energy is being added or removed in the system. Now, if we're talking about the infinite past, if time has like no beginning and extends infinitely backward, at every moment in the past, the universe had a certain amount of energy. Now let's assume like a finite at like any given time for now. Like the total energy over an infinite past in the sum or integral of all over past times would be like, if energy is conserved and the universe has always existed with like a finite non-zero energy density, then integrating over an infinite time would imply like an infinite total energy that has been used or existed over that infinite duration.
Okay.
So that's actually, it's problematic. It's problematic because we observe, like, given the current data we have, that the universe currently has like a finite amount of energy, well, as far as we can measure, and the infinite amount of energy had already like been expanded or existed in the past. And how does that reconcile like the finite energies we observe now?
Oh, so that means what I said, since Tron literally said the same thing that I said earlier, so how come now it's convincing to him?
So
how
that's an even better refutation than what Axility gave. But the only issue with
it's
that
the identical one, by the way.
Expansion.
Just a reminder that it was the identical one.
Axility was saying that we would just have energy. The way he worded it, yes, it would make sense if you differentiate actual infinity versus potential infinity.
We always been speaking about actual infinity, buddy. I even said that at the beginning, so you're not tracking.
But we don't necessarily require, anyways, we don't necessarily require this infinite energy for expansion or deflation. Okay.
Right. What are you talking about?
Understand, dark energy is a continuous point of a constant input of energy. Now, the Newtonian physics are very important. Newtonian physics set a base level for how we understand reality. This is true. But we understand there are little holes and little gaps in Newtonian physics that we can observe. Quantum fluctuations being one, excitements and excitation and photons randomly spawning out of nowhere and disappearing out of nowhere could be one. Even the idea of dark energy of itself. Newtonian physics cannot account for certain quantum events and phenomena that just happen. So in my mind, when I theorize of whether the universe can deflate, my only issue with that would be that there's not enough understanding on dark energy, which is what I was trying to explain to Axility.
Not really, because if you have a set of premises that are true, then the addition of other and the argument is deductively valid. Then, by the way, this is common knowledge in logic. So if he doesn't know what he's talking about, I guess it's his fault. By the way, in logic, it is a known fact that whenever you have a valid argument and all the premises are true, then no matter the amount of premises that you add to the argument, that's not going to change up the validity. So that means regardless. So what I'm saying is that regardless of the possible question marks, as long as the premises of the argument were true and the argument deductively follows, then what he said is right now is totally wrong. There's no space for any type of question mark, for any type of doubt, because regardless of the amount of premises that you add to a valid argument that has true premises, is not going to change the fact that it's going to be sound.
It's extremely simple.
So this just shows that you have ignorance on logic, I guess.
Yeah, bitch.
Holy shit.
Oh, sorry, Archie, you're talking about deflationism, like the universe expanding it like indefinitely?
Yeah, so we understand the inflation, at least if we look at it, has a model, okay? Inflation is more similar to, let's say, a balloon, or let's say raisin bread, right? When it starts from a certain point, it expands and expands and expands. If we were to take it back, and we were to take it back to a certain point, our physical processors are only allowed to go to a certain point. But beyond that, there could be, theoretically, more information and energy. The idea that we don't have an infinite amount of energy isn't like some disagreement towards this. If you want, I can also cite my sources, but dark energy, this is continuous. Okay, it's expanding. The universe could simply literally just...
That's a potential infinity, not an actual one. You're not addressing anything.
Rate, even if it is infinite in size.
Niggas are tracking them in.
This isn't necessarily something that's like an issue.
Right.
Actually, yeah, so here, let me cite my sources. Hold on.
Yeah.
Just so Axility can shut up.
Got it.
Axility can shut up, so he doesn't know humble me anymore. Gotcha.
I'll put this in chat. This is just a Q&A in chat.
Hope you have the distinction between the potential and actual infinity and sword.
I already have about the distinction. This is just
so what was the
Q&A from Stack Exchange. This is
because it's the universe is not in like an unperturbed like system.
Pardon?
No, you can send it.
Pardon?
Okay.
Shit's so corny, bro.
Yo, stop sending this femboy. Philosophize my argument. What is Apollo saying?
And right here, this is also quoted by the physicist, what's his face, Joseph Silk. In this, obviously, understanding. Obviously, like, there was a discovery in 2016 more about dark energy. But from this...
Archie. That's a Grabify link. Why are you sending me Grabify links?
Okay. So this cosmologist, essentially, they explain the idea of expansion and why it could be confusing, right? He even admits that we don't know, right, and that the expanding universe theory states that the universe could expand forever, that corresponds to a flat, right? And that probably is the model of the universe that feels the closest to now. There's a level of grounding evidence for this.
Yeah, so can I say something real quick? So Joseph says the expanding universe theory says that the universe could expand forever, that corresponds to a flat universe. And that is probably the model of universe that we feel closer to now, but it is also finite because the universe has a very large volume now, but finite. In the future, it will increase. So only in the infinite future will it actually be infinite.
Right. Awkward. So theoretically, in the infinite past, it could also work the same theoretically, obviously from our understanding of dark energy.
Yeah, once again, infinite past implies an infinite amount of energy. There's no infinite amount of energy, therefore there's no infinite past. Modus Dallas, there's confusion on your part.
Okay. What is your grievance, I should say?
Yeah, I just believe it doesn't address anything I said.
So how so? Because
so when I made it, you said I don't see any argument as to why it would work the same in the past, and more even then, if you like grant that we're talking about
it works the same in the past because of the nature of dark energy.
Yeah, as in like a potential sense, not an actual sense. I don't think you're like listening to this.
What do you mean potential?
But we can grant that. We can grant that.
But you don't have to yell. I'm just asking you a question. What do you mean by potential?
I know, but I'm already talking. Yeah, so I already explained this in the beginning. I don't feel like explaining it once again. But listen,
That's the point of our
in your own source,
I want to gain information.
Yeah, even your own source. Yeah, that's okay. Can you let me answer, please?
Okay.
By the way, the source from the
so we can grant like the potential infinity you're talking about, like the potentiality for the past to be like infinite, like when we're talking about expansion and indefinite.
If you grant that, then you agree with me. This is theoretical.
Yeah, we can grant that, but that's not gonna be the relevant.
What are you talking about?
What do you mean? What I'm talking about?
You're talking about actual infinity. Do you know what actual infinity is?
That's not an actual infinity.
So geodensically, what do you think actual infinity is?
What does geodensically even mean?
Geodensically means that it's in a form of space-time, right? It's in a model that can be observed.
Yeah, so that we're not. That definition that we're holding to is not going to be indexed. It's just space-time, like something eternal, no beginning. What you're describing within your source. What you're describing in your source, like this is literally an index with potential infinity, rather than like the relevant type of infinity we're talking about like some type of metaphysical infinity. Like,
where does it say this distinction?
No end. Yeah, so in your source it says like, we have the potential. I don't know what's so like.
What do you think it means by potential, dude?
Archie's getting bitch. What the fuck is he laughing for?
Something that can be reduced to actuality. Something that can be reduced to actuality.
I haven't local muted. I don't understand.
Yeah, something that could be reduced to action.
Well, obviously my son has me local muted because he does not want to get educated anymore. But it's okay.
Oh, damn! Wait, hold on. Give me a second, Archie.
Absolutely, this
is just pathetic. All of you guys are like, actually, not Tron. He's kind of understanding, but the idea is.
Even though he gave the same identical argument to me, but if it's Tron saying it, then it's convincing. If it's Axility, my father was educating me, then it is not convincing. Makes sense.
Okay. The reality is. Yes.
Wait.
Well, reality is you have no understanding metaphysics and logics at all, so I don't know what this nigga's speaking.
I mean, Einstein was a philosopher himself. This isn't hate. Right? This is just saying that people, they intertwine it too much. Okay?
Yeah. So let me respond to you. I was going to give you the definition because my mom was talking to me. Yeah, so a potential infinity, which was also indexed within your own source material. It's talking about like a process or sequence that grows indefinitely. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about.
Where was it indexed in my material?
Yeah, so he quote unquote said, let me go back to it.
Gotcha. I don't believe anything was indexed about potential infinity. I'll send it in chat again in case anyone can find it.
Yeah. So I'll just read out the part. No, I'm not like talking about that type of index. Like it's like corresponds to back to. Wait, what the fuck? Wait, where's the source? Okay. All right, there it is. Did you send it? All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Good boy. Yeah. So Joseph still quite literally says, but finite and that volume will increase. So we're talking like increasing finite like objects or something. Like so only in the infinite future will actually be infinite. So that's what we're talking about when the source.
Wait, say that again.
No, we can grant that. My fault. We can grant that. I'm just spazzing out. I think I'm off a perk right now. but that's going to be indexed to the definition. Well, not indexed, but like it's be corresponding to the definition. Like what we're talking about potential infinity, which is the process or sequence that grows indefinitely. Because I believe that's like given what the fucking expansionist theory says. Like that's what it is usually referring to. Without ever reaching like an infinite state. But what we're talking about in actual infinity, like which I believe I clarified like 5 fucking times for the entire VC in the rec, is an infinity that is completed existing infinitely quantity or set, so no potentiality, a metaphysical infinity, like infinity, like no beginning or end. Now we can grant what you're saying because there's no problem with that at all.
No, yeah, like theoretically, all I'm saying is that in this instance, if we were to refer to actual infinity and potential infinity, actual and potential, it isn't going to differentiate theoretical physics to applied physics. They're both theoretical in a sense. We can theorize actual infinity, you know. So when I'm referring to this, it's still using the set of actual infinity because
as in mathematically.
No, I'm not talking mathematically. If he's talking about
so then no, because actual infinity leads to contradiction. Let's just think about it mathematically.
What? Who said this? Wait, this is calculus, buddy.
Oh yeah, word. Yeah, so that's like
I'm talking about integration. Okay, so when we refer to integrals, okay, we are measuring the area under a certain set of curve. Oh, sorry, good. Just for the VC, when we're measuring integrals, we're measuring the area under a curve. The reason why a curve is important, and actually Marcel Grossman in, I believe, 1910, he was a Swiss, mathematician, he explained this, okay? We use calculus because we understand the universe, it forms under a curvature, okay? Which is at least our way of understanding it because we're humans and our brains are a little dumb. But, the fabric of space and time, and the expansion of it goes under a curvature. We understand this via the light rocket experiment. When you flash a light, how it bends a little bit, but obviously it's still approaching the same speed regardless. It bends under a curve because when you're progressing gravitationally, when you're expanding at such a level, exponentially, okay, you're bending reality. This is how we understand the universe's expansion. And theoretically, this is how we could
your brain is bended.
The deflation. At least that's how I think of it. Do you have agreements with that?
No, man. You got it.
I think I would actually.
First cost an infinite amount of elements. Cool.
I think my agreements.
But that nigga's still not addressing the fact that it would imply perpetual motion, and perpetual motion is not possible. Like, niggas still lost on that.
To deflate exponentially. What shape would that actually be? Because we
word.
Inflation, at least in the sense of inflationary physics, it curves, but we've seen little instances of quantum fluctuations almost operating in a triangular sense, which is actually really weird and brain.
Your brain is triangular.
Yeah, what's those instances called again? I forgot. There's they called it something.
Quantum fluctuations.
Wait. I know what that means, nigga. I know what that means. Like I'm talking about like the triangular, like.
What's triangular mean?
No, like.
See, this nigga cannot track. I told you. What the?
What are you trying to say?
Yeah, so you're talking about quantum fluctuations, like forming like in the triangle. Like you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Somewhat,
nigga been talking about quantum fluctuations in a triangle. What the fuck?
Obviously, not every
what
instance
the fuck is nigga
quantum fluctuations observed by the CMB is gonna work triangularly. Mainly because
Yo, Archie, you think triangles have quantum particles inside of them?
We understand when it inflates, it curves, at least in some sense, as we can understand. But theoretically, to deflate, we've seen certain instances of energy going back to its original form to go to something else, almost moving in a triangular version. Brian Cox, I believe he went to this university.
There's still going to be a finite amount of energy. It's a loop of a finite amount of energies.